I love these guys.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Secondhand Lions podcast. I'm here with my good friend John Drennan. I'm Bill Radford, and we're going to talk about the Lions as we do every week. And there are some noteworthy things that have happened in the league. The Rams left tackle, Alaric Jackson, I hope I'm saying his name right, has been arrested and is in some legal trouble, possibly a felony, and is facing, in addition to legal troubles, could be suspended by the league. So the Rams are going to have to find a left tackle. Uh, there's been rumors that Taylor Decker might be the one that fills in because he's still without a position or without a job, and so is Glass now. So a couple of Lions linemen that we had last year that started for us and aren't on the team anymore, haven't been able to find employment. So, John, I know you have some things about some optimistic views as you usually do. So, what's on your mind?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think what you just said's interesting that last year we're starting Taylor Decker and Graham Glasgow, and this year they don't have teams. And what's that say about maybe upgrades to our offensive line? I'll talk about that in a minute. And then the other thing, if LA does need to replace Jackson because of the legal issues, wouldn't that be interesting to see Taylor Decker back protecting Matthew Stafford because that's what he did with the Lions for a number of years. So let those two guys age out together this year. But Bill, last week I mentioned that I would be ready this week to give my optimistic reasons for why the Lions make it to the Super Bowl this year. And I'm going to go through a number of things. So please, I'm going to kind of do some monologue here, but please step in at any point because there will be a lot to comment. But I want to start with this. And so we're looking at this year's Lions. So let's start with the coaching staff. I think we can all agree last year the Lions just took a step back across the board. And I think part of it was Campbell, and he realized it and refocused. And, that's a powerful guy there. And I think we got Campbell at 100% right now. Last year, one of the issues, we did not have an offensive coordinator. The Johnny Moe thing did not work, and that cost a lot. Well, this year they got Drew Petzing, and everything since they hired him, we've seen and heard is what a great hire. And time will tell. But one of the things, Bill, I'm most excited about is to see this offense under Drew Petzing. But we also added Mike Kafka, who was the offensive coordinator last year for the Giants and then the interim head coach at the end of the year. Obviously, a very experienced coach. We've still got Hank Fraley, and Bill, that's so important this year is these new offensive linemen. But Hank Fraley may be the best line coach in the NFL. He's been with the Lions a long time. And then finally, Calvin Shepard, who replaced Aaron Glenn last year as the defensive coordinator. I think everyone agrees did a good job, but we also know it's a jump going from year one to year two. So it's his second year as the D coordinator. So I think across the board, we can say our coaching went from maybe a C, mostly due to Johnny Moe, to an A. Big jump. Check that box, folks.
Huh. Well, I'll try to bring you back to reality somewhere along the line.
Do we need to start here? Or are we okay so far?
I don't know. We haven't seen him yet, and you're already giving him an A, but that's okay.
Oh, no, across the board, coaching staff. So even if Petzing's a B minus, I think across the board we're an A. A minus
All
at worst.
right. What else you have there?
Well, let's go to, the elephant in the room, the biggest need, and that's the offensive line. And again, two guys that started last year are gone and not playing for other teams. So let's inventory the offensive line. Likely starters right now. You got Cade Mays at center. Now, again, he hasn't taken a snap for the Lions. We don't know, but we would all agree he's an upgrade to Graham Glasgow. Question is, how big of an upgrade? Now let's look at the guards. You got Christian Mahogany at left guard. He played some games there 2 years ago, did well, played last year, did okay, was injured part of the year, didn't do quite as well as I think people hoped. But when you play guard, it has a lot to do with who's on you. If you're a left guard, who's the center on your right? We didn't have a good center. Glasgow wasn't good, and he got hurt, and Cologne wasn't good, um, and the other guy they put in wasn't good. That didn't help Mahogany. And on the left, he had Taylor Decker, who was solid but hurt a lot. So Mahogany, to a degree, was on an island. I think he'll be solid this year. Right guard, you got Ratledge, who was a rookie, but he played well as a rookie. He had his issues. But again, the center to his left, it wasn't good. But he had Penei Sewell on the right. That was really good. But I think, again, Bill, everyone knows it. In the NFL, the biggest jumps are usually from year one to year two. I think Ratledge is rock solid this year. Let's look at the tackles. Last year we had the best in the league at right tackle and Penei Sewell. He's moving to left tackle. Yes, that will take some transition, but he did play left tackle in college, and he played left tackle his first year as a Lion for about the first half of the season. So I think he'll be fine, not just fine, but all pro again. And so who goes to right tackle? I think Blake Miller, game one, steps in as a rookie that played every single game in 4 years at Clemson. Everything about him says he can step in as a rookie. And again, the first is your worst. You know, he won't be as good this year as he likely will be in 3 years, but I think he'll be solid. And so the big issue there is chemistry because you got two new guys and one guy switching positions. So that ties in, I'm going to talk about it later, but our schedule allows us to get better with the chemistry while still winning games. So I'll come back to that. But I'm very excited about this starting offensive line.
Well, I hope you're right, but I'm a little confused about Ratledge. You said he didn't play that well last year.
I don't know if I said that as much as kind of he was okay. I thought he did well for a rookie.
I just don't necessarily buy that he's going to be leaps and bounds better than he was last year. You might be right, but there are some NFL players that their rookie year is the best year they ever have. So we'll have to wait and see. But continue with your optimism.
Okay, and by the way, the asterisk on this whole thing, I'm giving an across the board optimism on why the Lions are in the Super Bowl, knowing that every other thing I say, there's a big if. If Ratledge makes a jump from year one to year two, if the chemistry comes together, etc. So, okay, well, let's talk about the backups. Without question, we're deeper at offensive line. Everyone agrees Larry Borum could start at right tackle and be solid. Pretty much everyone agrees. Miles Frazier, who didn't play much last year because of injury, but he was a good choice out of LSU last year, and he could potentially, he's likely our left guard if Christian Mahogany isn't, and should be solid. Ben Barch, a really solid backup player, if healthy. Now that's been an if for him. And Juice Scruggs, who came over in the deal with Montgomery going to the Houston Texans, gives us more depth there. So there's depth on that line. So I think our offensive line made a huge jump across the board. And that's a box that has to be checked in order for the Lions to have a really good season. For me, we can check that box. They got a much higher ceiling and they start with a much higher floor than a year ago. Um, all right, so that was the start of the offense. Now, quarterback, you and I have talked a little bit about Goff not getting the love he should. In fact, you noted a report that came out on quarterbacks. You want to just kind of comment on where that report had Goff? I know they've got him in the top 10, which is, and before you do, Bill, last year you wouldn't have put Sam Darnold in the top 10, and Seattle wins the Super Bowl with him. Goff certainly is a top 10 quarterback. So go ahead with that report.
Well, they came up with a new grading model, and in this model, they have given certain percentage to each category. And so this is how it breaks down. The total score is 100. Production is 25, efficiency is 20, consistency is 20, impact on winning or high leverage, they call it, is 15. Opponent adjustment is 10%, and durability is 10%. And so on all of these, they have then a score. 100's perfect. Nobody got that. Patrick Mahomes got a 97. I mean, there's no arguing he's an incredible athlete, but well, he got injured last year, but before he got injured, he wasn't that good. So it was a down year. Everybody has him, I guess. Then there's Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, which I don't. I mean, he's been MVP now how many times? 2 or 3?
I'm not
But
sure.
he's there, but Lamar Jackson has not played well in the playoffs. So when all the chips are in the middle, for some reason he's coming up short. Joe Burrow is very talented, but has been on a team with a lousy defense, so can't get anything done there except the 1 year. And Justin Herbert. Now it's easy to watch him and see that he's talented, but uh, he's rated ahead of Matthew Stafford, which I don't get. And then Dak Prescott and Stroud, and then Goff. Stroud and Goff are the same. They both get 86 on this scale. So Sam Darnold, the Super Bowl winning quarterback that played great, really 2 years in a row, uh, one for Minnesota and then last year for Seattle, he gets an 81. Jaden Daniels is way down to 78. Caleb Williams is 78. And so what they do is they call it true elite. And there's 4 guys there: Mahomes, Allen, Jackson, Burrow. Then they have high-end elite, and that's Herbert, Stafford, and Prescott. And then they have high-end starter, and that's Stroud, Goff, Hurts, Love, Mayfield, Trevor Lawrence, Brock Purdy. So that's after that is a low-end starter. Daniel Jones is a low-end starter on this scale. So is Caleb Williams and Drake May. So I'm not sure how much confidence I have in this scale. I just know that it seems like our quarterback, Jared Goff, consistently gets underrated and borderline disrespected with all these so-called experts. I know he's not disrespected in the league, uh, former coaches that now do analysis all rave about him. So, uh, what do you think, John?
Well, I think he's the best in the North. And that report says that too. He's better than Love, better than Williams, better than Murray or J.J. McCarthy. I think he's, you can debate this kind of thing forever. To me, he and Burrows are very close. He and Prescott, very close. He and Herbert, all kind of that close to elite. I know they've got Burrows in the elite. You know, I So he's right there. And according to that, Bill, he's tied for seventh. And again, if you got a top 10 quarterback, that's pretty good. He is all of that. So, and to me, we check that box big time because to me, he'll be better this year than last year. He's got an offensive coordinator, and I just think so many weapons. And Bill, it comes back to offensive line. Two things. If they can have a running game, which I know Dan Campbell, he's totally committed to getting back to that. Like he says, it all starts with that. If this offensive line can block for Gibbs and Pacheco and protect Goff, he could have a monster year. That's my thoughts on that.
Well,
So
I
let's,
know you'll probably get to running back, but I think that the Lions have the best running back in the NFL.
well, that's a good segue. Next up, running back. Best running back in the NFL. You just said it. Gibbs, and you and I agree with this, but I've heard some experts say good chance this year Gibbs is the offensive player of the year.
Well, Good Morning Football, one of the experts there, so-called experts, just raves about uh, Gibbs. So, from his mouth to God's ears, let's hope that Gibbs stays healthy. I think if he does, uh, sky's the limit for him.
Yeah, and a couple more things. As everybody loves Montgomery, he was a great player here. I do wonder, was there some level of not controversy, but awkwardness in trying to fit those guys together when clearly you wanted the ball more in Gibbs' hands, it seems like overall. And the Lions were playing from behind a lot, where they kind of were looking for that big play. And the magic wasn't there with those two guys last year. But again, to me, it goes back to the offensive line and just kind of across the board, a drop in quality last year of the team. This year, I don't see um, Gibbs the ball, 80% of the time. Don't want to wear his tires out in 1 year. But I think without question, he's the number one premier back. He's going to get the ball a lot as a receiver and running back. But then that brings us to Pacheco. I think's the ideal number two back. And if Pacheco's anything close to what he was before his injury when he was playing in Super Bowls with the Chiefs, I think look out because he's, in my mind, the ideal second back if it's not going to be Montgomery. But again, time will tell. We don't know if he'll be back to old form or not. He wasn't fully back last year. Um, let's go to receiver and talk about the big three. Without question, St. Brown, elite receiver. Jamison Williams, borderline elite receiver. And Tesla, as you mentioned last week, and kind of who's your wild card player that could really have an impact. You started with Tesla. And that guy last year, 16 receptions, 6 touchdowns. Um, by the way, Bill, I heard this is kind of a note for our listeners. The wide receiver for Green Bay, I think the news was out last week and we talked about it. Christian Watson signed for like 110 million. I'm bringing that back up 4 years, 110 million. I'm bringing that back up because I think last year he had 6 touchdown receptions. Well, so did Isaac Tesla. So to me,
Yeah,
Tesla,
I really think that that was one of the mistakes that the coaching staff made last year. And I don't know all the ins and outs. Maybe Isaac wasn't blocking well enough, and so he wasn't getting the playing time that he would have gotten otherwise. I know that the coaching staff, Campbell especially, puts a high premium on wide receivers blocking. Uh, St. Brown is great at it. I've seen Williams blocking way downfield. So I don't know about Tesla. I'm not saying he didn't block, but I just I just couldn't think of a reason why somebody with that much talent making so many amazing catches. I mean, if you put together a reel of the 10 best catches in the NFL last year, Tesla might have three of them.
that's right.
And so how he only gets 16, uh, I was flummoxed.
Yeah, and I
So
think he was targeted. It was either 24 or 26 times. So, no, I agree. And I think the answer, and this is just from things I heard about maybe his route running wasn't crisp. And just, I think as a rookie, there's the things that aren't obvious that coaches see, we don't. But again, I'll make the case second year is the biggest jump. So I think Ratledge and Tesla this year, both those guys, and I'm going to get to a third one, Tyleek Williams, those guys could all make a big jump. And that's a big part of my optimism why we go to the Super Bowl. So, um, and then there is some depth in the wide receiver room. You know, they added Cedric Wilson recently, and um, I'll mention this now. Kendrick Law, the rookie from Kentucky, who they really wanted, they traded up for him. He's out for the season. He tore his, I think he had an ACL recently in non-contact um, in the OTAs. So, but I think they had him really targeted, not so much as a receiver this year, but in the return game and special teams. But they also added Greg Dortch. You know, last year, Bill, their third receiver was the guy whose name I always got to stop and think.
Khalif Raymond.
Thank you, Raymond. Very good. But if it was Raymond or Tesla this year, I'd rather have Tesla. So he's our number three. But then Greg Dortch comes in as a really good slot receiver as our fourth receiver. And then we have some depth beyond that. So I think that room is the best it's probably been ever for the Detroit Lions. All
So
right,
that's saying a lot because we had Calvin Johnson there for a few years.
we did, but who was there with him?
I don't know.
You know, I mean, we had Herman Moore, and so yeah, that was a big statement. Um, all right, let's go to tight ends. At the end of last year, we had no tight ends. That was a disaster. We lost Sam Laporta and Brock Wright, and nobody else was working out. So where are we today? And again, this is my optimism of I'm very hopeful Sam Laporta comes back from the back surgery and is close to where he was a year ago before he got hurt. He has been at the OTAs running and catching passes and seems to be on track. If he is, he's probably a top three tight end in the NFL. They bring in Tyler Conklin, who's a proven, 30, 31-year-old tight end. He can pass, block, and he can catch. He can run block. and then Brock Wright's back, who is solid. And then they got some younger guys, but it looks like we'll have three solid tight ends, whereas a year ago we started the season with two and ended the season virtually with none. That's a big plus there. All right, let's go to defense, but before we do, I my prediction is the Lions have the number one offense in the NFL this year.
Well, John, I have to say that there's a lot of experts, including the Sports Illustrated article you mentioned last week, that has the Lions winning the division, having the best record in the NFL, and the best offense in the NFL. So your optimism is shared, uh, and they weren't too far off of having the best offense last year, even with all their problems in terms of
Exactly.
scoring. So, uh, yeah, I'm very optimistic about the offense.
And
It's
again,
the,
everything I'm saying here is coming with, it's not just optimistic, but this is with a lot of ifs. If the offensive line gels to any degree, if Laporta is back, if Pacheco can run, these kinds of ifs, then number one offense. And if not number one, for sure number two. So let's talk about defense. To me, this is the biggest factor overall. Well, offensive line, but we've talked about that. Biggest factor overall on where the Lions end up. Let's start with edge. To me, they're better and they're deeper. In Hutchinson, last year he came back from that brutal injury of the previous year and did very well. I think this year he'll be a little better than he was last year.
I
But
think
either
he'll be a
way,
lot better.
well, if he's a lot better, I mean, he's a top three edge in the NFL.
Well, he was on the 2 years ago when he was injured in the Dallas game. He was on his way to Defensive Player of the Year.
Absolutely.
He was a monster. Uh, you know, I hesitate to say this, but the Lions were killing the Cowboys when he broke his leg. So it's always a question of when you're ahead by 25 or 30 points, do you put your really valuable players on the bench and let the backups play a little bit? I'm in favor of that. If they'd have done that, he wouldn't have got hurt. But 2020 hindsight. But I think if he returns to the form from 2 years ago, he's going to be borderline unstoppable.
Well, that's a starting point for my they're better and they're deeper. He's better this year. Last year they had Davenport that seemed to do nothing and then got hurt. He's gone. They had Muhammad, who had like 10 sacks. He was good as a pass rusher, but could only be used on those downs. He was not a run stopper. He's gone.
Well, the thing about that too, John, is his
What,
was
five
it 10
sacks
sacks
came
or
in one
12
game?
sacks?
Whatever it was, I know five of them came in one game.
Exactly, that's the point. So he was uh, great one game and then almost ineffective the rest of them.
Yeah, some games his name never got called. Virtually all games, Davenport's name never got called.
Meanwhile, Hutchinson's getting double teamed,
Yep.
uh, and he still couldn't make the plays. So,
So what have we done? We have veteran DJ Wanham, who is a known commodity. He's a good run stopper. He's a decent pass rusher. He's experienced. He's an upgrade to Davenport or Muhammad, in my opinion. And I don't know much about the guy. This is all based on everything I've learned since he got picked up in free agency. Then they bring in Derek Moore. Again, he'll be a rookie, but in advance of the season, I'm going to say Derek Moore is certainly equal to Muhammad in some way, in some level of value. Then they picked up in free agency Peyton Turner. I think he at one time was a first round draft pick. His issue's been injuries, but if he can give them some, spell Hutchinson, give them some depth there, that's needed depth. Last year, at the beginning of the year, I raved about Ahmad Hassanan from Boise State as someone who'd become a fan favorite. This is a guy that's inexperienced, but he's got a nonstop motor, a great attitude, works his tail off. And, I think everyone says he's back to health. I think at some point this season, he brings depth. So they're still not deep, but I think they're deeper than they were a year ago and definitely better. Let's look at the interior line. Same thing. I think they're better, not necessarily deeper. But the big question starts with the Liam McNeil. Bill, before he got hurt 2 years ago, he was a premier defensive lineman, probably top 5 in the NFL. And they gave him the big contract. Well, then he had the big injury, and last year came back, November, late November. And for the Tampa Bay game, he looked like he was his old self for that game, but the rest of the year he wasn't good. But everyone agrees that injury, I think it was an ACL on a big guy like that, it takes time. So now he's a year away from that. And people are optimistic he'll be back. If he is, we got a top D interior lineman there. Next, Tyleik Williams, again, last year rookie from Ohio State. He was okay. He was solid, but if he makes that jump from year 1 to year 2, and he definitely has the potential for that, we have 2 solid interior D guys. And then a third, and all of these 3 are big question marks. I'm giving the optimistic view because the pessimistic view is they all suck. They're hurt. But Levi Onwuzurike, very good 2 years ago, out the entire season last year. People claim he's physically back to health now. And if so, he brings really valuable depth to the interior line and possibly some depth at edge. So to me, those 3 guys collectively, Bill, are a huge question mark. But I'm giving the optimistic view.
I don't know how you can say huge question mark and optimistic view in the same sentence.
Well, it's a big if they all do what's possible. It's possible they all have great years.
But it's also
Not
possible
likely,
that
but
none of
even
them
if,
do.
yeah, right, it's possible none of them do. But even if it's not all 3, unlikely if 2 of the 3 do, and the other one's so, we're going to be pretty good in interior line. Now, our depth, um, people are high on Skylar Gill Howard, undersized guy. He's a rookie. He's like 6'1", 280, but apparently on he's very disruptive on passing downs. And there will be times in games where he can really impact the game, maybe third downs. Makai Wingo is back to health, kind of similar to Skylar Gill Howard. Um, and then there's some other potential depth guys like Miles Adams and um, I think Chris Smith, but depth is probably not really deeper because last year they had DJ Reed and they had Ray Lopez. So the interior line, that's a big question mark. I'm hoping for the best there. Linebacker, I think we're pretty equal to a year ago. Jack Campbell, Pro Bowl player. maybe the best linebacker in the game this year, with Fred Warner aging one more year. If it's not Warner, it's Campbell. Best in the game. Um, we don't know to what degree we'll miss Alex Anzalone. So Derek Barnes was a disappointment last year. Again, he came off an injury, but he got a pretty big salary 2 years ago, and he's got to be better. He could be a difference maker, Derek Barnes. Also, Rodriguez, out most of last year with an injury. He's solid. Hopefully, he's back at where he was before he got hurt. We've got a veteran in Damone Clark. I don't know anything about him, but he adds depth, and he's a veteran that's got a lot of snaps. And then Jimmy Rolder, wild card, fourth round pick from Michigan. I think they're high on him, but not as a starter this year, but adds depth. Then they got a couple other guys that they've had. So I think that room overall is probably going to be equivalent to what it was a year ago.
Now, are we going to talk about the secondary?
Yeah, that's next. One
Are
more
we?
comment that relates to the
Or,
second. What's
okay,
that?
go ahead.
One more comment. Last year, the Lions led the league in playing defense with three linebackers, where it's four up front and then three linebackers. The talk this year is they're going to play a lot more nickel. Nickel means you got two linebackers, but an extra defensive back. And that can be helpful in coverage. And so let's look at cornerback. So let's start with the two elephants in the room, Terrion Arnold and Ennis Rakestraw, both high draft picks 2 years ago. Arnold, as a rookie, got penalized every other play in the first part of the season, got better by the end of the year, very promising. Last year started out very promising, then got hurt and didn't contribute really. Rakestraw hurt 2 years in a row. So the optimistic view, Arnold comes back, is healthy, and in his third year becomes a very solid cornerback. I have felt since they drafted him someday he could be a Pro Bowl cornerback. Won't be this year, but if he can be solid, and if Ennis Rakestraw can play and not be hurt this year, I see him as a solid backup to the other cornerback, which is DJ Reed. He was brought in last year from the Jets, very solid till he got hurt with a hamstring. And when he came back from that, he was never the same. So they were really hurt at cornerback last year. But DJ Reed should be back. So hopefully, Bill, between Arnold, Rakestraw, and Reed, we have two solid starting cornerbacks. But then we picked up Roger McCreary. Experts say that was one of the best free agent picks by any team. McCreary can play nickel. He can play cornerback. He's a proven veteran. We got Rock Ya-Sin, who's solid. If he starts a game at cornerback, I feel like we're not losing out. Very solid. And we got the rookie Keith Abney, came in the fifth round. Everyone thought he should be third round or fourth round. And they compare him a lot to Amik Robertson and can play the nickel. And again, he's a rookie, but adds depth. Then Bill, we got Khalil Dorsey, who's been around for years, adds depth, and Nick Whiteside, who filled in last year when Tampa Bay game.
Yeah, I want to go back to the cornerbacks for a second.
That's what I've been on. That was all cornerbacks right there.
Yeah, I just can't share your optimism about Terrion Arnold. I think he's closer to Jeff Okudah than he is to the answer at cornerback. Everybody remembers Jeff Okudah coming out of Ohio State, unanimous All-American, first team All Big Ten, and I think he was the third pick overall, something like that.
Yes.
And he just was, I don't want to say he was a bust, but he just wasn't that good.
Do you know
Um,
what the primary knock was on him?
I don't.
It's different than Terrion. The knock is he never got better. And you expect players to come in and get better. Arnold got better in his first year.
Yeah, I'm just okay. Well, Okuda's
I'm
been
just saying, I'm not
Okuda's
dis
been with the Lions, the Falcons, the Texans, and the Vikings.
and he's still not better.
Right.
That's my point.
And I don't think I don't think Arnold got much better. I
Wouldn't you agree that first year, every pass play you held your breath, he's getting a penalty. By the end of the season, you weren't holding your breath. You were just hopeful. I mean, it got better.
well,
And
right.
last year he started
He
out
wasn't
better.
interfering. He was watching him go in the end zone for touchdowns.
Well, I think the start of last year, without question, he had made a big jump from the start of.
Well, and
Okuda didn't.
in his defense, he his first year he was getting called for interference a lot on reputation after he had committed some interference penalties. You know, some of these other cornerbacks are doing the exact same stuff and not getting called. But
You know, you mentioned that 2 years ago, and I always thought that was a great observation. That, yeah, he's now sort of got a target on his back, and they're calling everything on him.
right.
You're right. And then
So
last year, Bill, it was tough playing cornerback for the Lions
yeah,
because, they weren't pressuring quarterbacks, and that all those things tie together. As you've always said, I've always said, a better pass rush makes it easier on the cornerbacks. Great cornerbacks make it easier on the pass rushers. When you have good on both sides, look out.
yeah. You look at the Houston Texans. I
Right.
mean, they were incredible on defense last year. Um, a lot of people thought they were going to go to the Super Bowl because of it, but Stroud had an off year and really hurt them. Uh, man,
And he
if you have a good defense, I mean a upper echelon defense, you've got a chance, even if your offense is pedestrian. And our offense is borderline fabulous. So
yeah. Well, I don't take away anything you've said about Terrion, except the one thing with the comparison to Okuda. I agree the comparisons, they were both first rounders and have both disappointed to date, but Okuda just didn't get better. I see Arnold getting better, but he not if he's hurt, not if he's in legal trouble. So this is a big year. Bill, for him and Laporta. This is the year those guys could go to being mega millionaires or semi busts. I only say that about Laporta if he can't come back from injury.
yeah, Laporta has nothing to do with talent or effort.
Right.
It's can he stay healthy?
Yeah, absolutely. So anything else on the cornerback situation?
No, I'd say that's been our weakness on defense the last 2 or 3 years.
Well, to me, and I know we lost to Meek Robertson, to me, we're better off today than we were at the end of the season because theoretically, DJ Reed's healthy, Terrion's healthy, Ennis might be healthy, and we added McCreary and Abney. I just think we're better today than we were in December.
Well, it'd be hard to be worse.
Okay, well, let's go to safety. Two big questions, Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph. My mindset is we're not hearing any good news on Kirby, and he's likely done as an NFL player or at the level that we saw him play the game.
I mean, that's
I would,
really a shame because he a couple of years ago he led the league in interceptions.
he's a ball hawk.
Yeah,
And I know
that's
that's not an optimistic. There is an if there. If Kirby can come back and be solid, massive upgrade to this team. But my thinking is one of the two guys. I think Brian Branch will come back, but it won't be at the start of the year. It's one of the reasons our schedule favors us because I think we can beat the Saints and the Jets and um, these early games, even if we don't have Branch and Joseph. And that gives Branch more time to heal. Maybe the same for Joseph. But what do we have? We added Chuck Clark. He's a longtime veteran. When you have veterans who have played a lot of snaps in their history and they still have tread on the tire, and I think that's him. That definitely adds depth. You got Thomas Harper, who played very well in backing up, in replacement of Branch and Joseph. Got Avante Maddox, same thing. But a big one, Bill, is the addition of Christian Isian. People are very high on him. Tampa Bay people loved him. He's likely a starting safety along with Chuck Clark at the first game of the year. And you got Dan Jackson, brought in last year, drafted from Georgia, got hurt, never played last year. So we'll see on him. And then Lauren Strickland, another backup. So the big question marks there are BB and Kirby Joseph.
those are big question marks.
They sure are. Now, can we still win without them? Yes. But we need a lot of these other, the edge position has to do well. The interior line has to do well. Linebackers need to be solid. And if we have strong cornerbacks, we're okay with Clark, Harper, Maddox, Izzy, and Jackson and Strickland, I think.
Yeah, my concern is against a good team. Let's say Buffalo. Second game of the year, we've played them even, maybe even taken a lead with 2 or 3 minutes to go, head by 3 or 4 points. I just don't have any confidence that Buffalo, uh, with Josh Allen coming down the field at the end of the game, is going to be stopped by
Well,
our
that fits your
secondary.
narrative that you've already picked Buffalo to beat Detroit. So that sort of is okay. And I agree with you. I mean, it takes a lot to slow down Josh Allen, no question. Feel a lot better if you got a healthy Kirby and a healthy Brian Branch back there.
But you're saying that you don't think Kirby's going to play anymore.
I just don't like the feeling I'm getting ever since he went out in the Kansas City game last year. It's almost like his knee's a mystery and it's not getting better, and there's not a lot of optimism coming from anywhere. So to me, anything we end up getting from him is bonus and gravy and would be so awesome.
Yeah, the Lions, they're not very optimistic.
Correct. I mean,
Um,
Dan Campbell's press conference recently talking about it, he just couldn't be optimistic. But
which
let's hope,
really a shame because he's only 25 years old. You
yeah,
know,
and maybe he needs a whole year away and stem cell treatment and God knows what to come back. But I don't know if it'll be this year. But again, with enough pieces in place, it doesn't have to be. Let's wrap up with special teams. Jack Fox, very good. I think he's a Pro Bowl level punter. Jake Bates, solid. Solid to very good. And the return game, not sure. Kendrick Law getting hurt, I think, is a bit of a blow. But we got some new guys like Dortch um, in terms of returning punts and kickoffs, and then just special teams in general. I'm not sure, but I think just knowing the Lions, they'll be solid in special teams with a very good punter and a reliable field goal kicker. So lastly, Bill, I got intangibles. First one, easy schedule, relatively. And to me, it's set up perfect for the Lions again because their first 5 games, the biggest challenge really is Buffalo. Because then, in addition to that, they got the Saints, the Jets, the Panthers, and is it Dolphins? I think.
I know they play the Dolphins. I don't know if it's the first 5 games.
I think it is.
I would call John. I would call that a tangible. I mean, that is maybe the biggest break. Uh, and we finished 9-8, which is a winning record, which you and I have both said 4 or 5 years ago we would have been salivating over a 9-8 record. And it just so happened that in the North Division we finished last with a 9-8 record. So we're getting a last place schedule, just like a team that finished 3-14 would get a last place schedule. So we should really be able to make hay, and I think a very tangible plus for the season for the Lions.
Okay, well, I'll call that's very significant. Where intangible, I'm referring to things that it's hard to measure, like your roster, your coaches. Um,
Right.
Without question, it's very significant. And again, I go back to that gives us early games that we can and should win while our offensive line is gaining chemistry, while Petzing is gaining his footing as the OC, etc. Secondly, NFC North, I just want to say I think the Lions win the North. Interesting, I was listening to a Lion podcaster who's also a kind of a known expert. I forget his name, but he thinks the North ends up Lions, then Vikings, then Bears, then Packers. Um,
Vikings, that's interesting.
yeah, he thinks they're going to be much, much better, mainly because they'll have a reliable quarterback. But
Well, two
Vikings
years
are
ago they
loaded.
were 14-3, so
Yeah, I mean they got a strong roster. Okay, next huge one is injuries. You know, if we have the kind of injuries we've had the last 2 years, all this kind of falls down. Next one, I think the Detroit Lions are hungry. They're pissed. Their culture's back to grit, to willpower, and the drop we saw last year ends up being a positive for this year because they're all just kind of collectively pissed. I think, it's like you don't want to corner a dangerous animal. That's what this feels like to me. And then one last thing, Bill. It's an overall roster, and this report came out. I'm reading it now. How the Lions match up against the rest of the league in terms of elite players. So elite, um, and they've got it here by true elite and then high end elite. 49ers, a team that you continue to, talk about how good they are, and I agree with you. True elite, Nick Bosa at edge and Christian McCaffrey at running back. Okay, I'll buy that. High end elite, Trent Williams, longtime solid tackle. Fred Warner, best linebacker in the game. George Kittle, one of the best linebackers in the game. Total, 5 elites, 2 true elites, 3 high-end elites. They lead in that because the next team only has 4. Jalen Carter, this is the Eagles, Jalen Carter, interior lineman, and Lane Johnson. Not sure what, linebacker maybe? Not even sure. Or tackle.
John, I just want to jump in here for a second. You called George Kittle a linebacker.
I did?
Yeah, he's a
Tight
tight
end.
end.
Sorry.
You
Yeah.
knew you knew that.
Yeah, yeah. And then Jalen Hurts, they've got his high end elite. I question that. And Quinyon Mitchell, cornerback, high end elite. So they got 4. Okay, now I'm getting to the Detroit Lions, tied for second, also with 4. Jahmyr Gibbs, running back. Yes, high or true elite. Penei Sewell, tackle. Absolutely true elite. High end elite. Amon St. Brown. Okay, I'll buy that.
I don't.
Yeah, and that's valid. I mean,
Why
he's,
isn't he true elite? He has more touchdowns in the last 3 years than anybody in the NFL.
yeah, and by the way, A.J. Brown is on as a true elite, which I don't buy. So for sure, that one's questionable. But then also Aiden Hutchinson. To me, he's true elite, and they got him. But that's all they got. Now, what's a glaring miss on this for the Lions?
Jack Campbell, Jared Goff.
Jack Campbell. I, the he's all pro. Virtually every expert says, outside of Fred Warner, he's the best linebacker in the game. Why is he not on here in one of those categories to tie the Lions with the Eagles? And then as I go through these lists, boy, we got a number of players on the border. If Branch wasn't hurt, he'd probably be on here. Jamison Williams is close. But just to keep going, so that's 2 team. Okay, so one team, the 49ers, have 5 elite players. The Eagles have 4, according to this. The Lions have 4, and we know Campbell should be on there, so that's 5. Then it's got the Bengals have 3. Burrows, Chase, and Higgins. Well, if T. Higgins is on here, to me, would you rather have T. Higgins or Jamison Williams?
It's at least a tie.
At least, absolutely. Then the Chiefs are on here with 3. Mahomes, for sure. Chris Jones, yes. Creed Humphrey, I don't even know who he is, but obviously he's good. Cowboys have 3. Chargers 2. Colts 2. Steelers 2. But none of those have true elites. Chargers, Colts, Steelers, no true elites. Rams have 2 true elites. Matthew Stafford and one they didn't have 2 weeks ago, Myles Garrett.
So
But that's
Puka
all they,
Nakua is an elite.
he's not on here.
All right. Well,
Right.
yeah.
No, but maybe that's a combination of injury and addiction or
Yeah,
whatever.
I would be hard pressed to put anybody ahead of Puka Nakua as wide receiver in the NFL.
No, he should be on there. So again, there must be a reason he's not. It's not his talent. He's awesome. But the Patriots have A.J. Brown as a true elite. So I would take that off. At best, he'd be in the high level elite. Bills have 2, Josh Allen, James Cook. Broncos have 2. Ravens 1, Lamar Jackson. Texans 1, Will Anderson. Jets none.
I was going to
Packers
say,
Packers 1, Micah Parsons.
and he's
Let's
hurt and may not play for half of the
right.
season.
Let's jump down to the Vikings 1, Justin Jefferson. Let's jump down to the Bears. None.
Well,
So that's my final cream on top. That we got a roster with elite players, and elite players matter.
yeah, they do. Stars win games.
Yep.
Well,
So
John,
yeah, that's my forecast. That's why the Lions make the Super Bowl, given a lot of ifs and an optimistic world.
well, I don't think that it's beyond the realm of possibility to make the Super Bowl. I think they will win the North. I think they'll win the North handily. Um, and then the thing with the playoffs is it's just one game and you're out. And that's obviously the nature of football. That's the way it has to be. But look at these basketball playoffs or the hockey playoffs, or the World Series. It's best of seven. In football, it's you have one bad game, sometimes just one bad play or one bad call by an official. Um, I mean, I won't go down the list, but there's a lot of games that the outcome has been radically changed by one missed call or one terrible call by an official in the NFL.
Or how about the Lions against the 49ers in the NFL championship game where the ball goes off Victor, what's his name's helmet
Yeah,
and reception for that. My guess is if that was an incomplete pass, we're in the Super Bowl.
yeah, yeah, or an
So we
interception.
said to get in and win the Super Bowl, there's an element of luck, and it's everything you're talking about plus injuries. And NFL, you got a peak in January.
Right. Well, John, for a middle of the summer, no games going on podcast, this is our longest one ever.
Nothing to talk about. I'd love to have, we have many listeners. I'd love to see or hear them as they hear some of this stuff and they're saying stuff like, you're fricking out of your mind. Or, yeah, man, spot on. We'll
All
get some
right, well, let's
listeners
wrap it
on with
up. If you like our podcast, you can go to Secondhand Lions. It's the shlpodcast.com and hear any past podcasts. Also, uh, you can tell your friends and give us a like so that we can get the biggest audience possible by the start of the new season. Thank you
Yeah,
for
go to
listening.
the website. You'll see our pictures and a little bit of our bios. So there you go.
All right.
All right, Bill, it's
Everybody, you
been
have a good
fun.
week.
All right, have a good one. We'll be back next week, folks. Take care. Bye for now.